out of control anger of yours might be out of control for a reason. It's a habit. And with all habits, they're tough to control. But here's how you can take care of it. Anger takes control quick, and our response to it is just as immediate. And there's a reason for that. It's because anger is triggered, and that anger may be triggered because we feel threatened by something. And that might be because our anger has a habit pattern. That habit pattern is quick, and it's so quick, it takes control of us immediately. In James Clear's book, Atomic Habit, he talks about habits, how they're formed, and what you can do about it. Habits are built for a reason. Habits make us efficient. Otherwise, our minds would explode, processing every single little
detail that goes on in our life.
Can you imagine every single time you tied your shoe, you have to remember every little movement you did? Instead, you just kind of do it out of habit, and you remember. A lot of habits are really good. But you know what? Sometimes we build the wrong habits, and that's when things go bad. For example, let's say every single morning you wake up, you have to take a smoke. You don't even think about it. You wake up, get ready, smoke. And let's say any day you wake up and you're not able to, it becomes a problem. You feel withdrawals, you tense up, you get stressed out, and you get angry. That's when habits become a problem. You realize you need to change, but it is really hard to change a habit. In James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, he talks about the 4 things that are required to build a habit. The 4 things required to build a habit are cue, craving, response, and reward. For me, my habit is junk food. If I hear the crinkle of a junk food bag, which, admit it, has a specific sound to it, and I'm talking about the bad junk food. For some reason, unhealthy junk food has a specific sound to the bag, compared to healthy junk food, where their packaging is completely different. When I hear that unhealthy junk food bag crack open, there's a craving to taste it. And if I don't respond by getting some of that junk food, I don't feel the reward. Same thing applies to anger. When you get triggered, there's a cue. Your anger is cueing you to make a response. You're craving that feeling of venting. And if you don't respond to that anger, you're gonna feel like an explosion is gonna happen and you're holding it in. And it isn't until you lash out that you feel the reward of letting go. That is a habit. Some people respond by lashing out violently. They'll punch a wall, they'll slap somebody, or they'll take it out on themselves. There are people who bite themselves or punch themselves in order to feel better. And that's the only way they can feel the reward. And it's up to you whether you maintain it or not. But it is very difficult to break that habit. But here's the thing. It's also difficult to keep it. There are 4 ways you could break that habit, and it is involved with each one of those steps of a habit. You can make the cue invisible. You can make the craving unattractive. You can make the response difficult, and you can make the reward unsatisfying. Now let's break it down. Let's say we're talking about that junk food craving again. The cue is the sound of the bag opening. If I make it invisible, I would have to make it unavailable for me to even hear. And one way of doing it is removing the junk food entirely. If your anger is triggered by playing video games, guess what? You gotta remove the video games. The cue is anything in that game that pisses you off. And one way of getting rid of that cue is to get rid of video games entirely. If you want to remove a craving, you have to make it unattractive. One way of making your anger reactions unattractive is to record yourself in that moment. If you get a glimpse of yourself when you're pissed off, there's a good chance you might not like what you see. Remind yourself of who this ugly person is. And you see this a lot with people who have young kids. They can't respond to their anger the way they used to because they want to set a good example. The trigger or the cue is always going to be there. They make the craving unattractive. They don't want to set a bad role model for their kids. So being somebody who lashes out in anger violently is very unattractive to them because they don't want to be a poor example to their kids. People with children who are trying to be good examples target that craving stage. Let's say you've already been triggered and you have that craving to respond and you couldn't stop it. How do you stop a response from becoming a habit? You have to make it difficult. Let's say someone cuts you off in traffic and you have this craving to lash out back at them and you want to respond by cutting them off, but you're stuck. They drove off already, but you're stuck in traffic. It makes it difficult to respond to them. If you can continue that, it'll eventually cut off your habit. Making it difficult cuts off a response. You were triggered, you had a craving to respond, you responded, but now you have a reward. The reward, typically, when we get angry, is to feel relaxed. When you vented, you feel relaxed. But let's say you responded by venting and lashing out, but you don't feel better. That reward is gone. You remove a reward by making it unpleasant. If you've ever been pissed off and lashed out and realized it does not help, you're eventually gonna stop doing it because it doesn't work. The reward that you get from lashing out is not fulfilling. Tackling your habits require you to target these 4 things. It's even better if you target multiple points. That helps you eliminate it a lot easier. If you're trying to control your anger and find it uncontrollable, it's because it's a habit. It has these 4 steps to it, and you gotta target it correctly. Otherwise, it seems like it's out of your control. If you're feeling unmotivated and want to take your motivation into your own hands, on March 16th, 2024 at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, there will be a live Zoom on how to take control of your motivation. So click on the link below, join the community, and join our motivational session where you can find other people like yourself who will hold you accountable on taking control of your anger and your life. And until next time, guys, this is Dr. Tank saying, never give up on yourself.